All right, so today's panel is about building the future of fintech and how female executives are leading the way. So I will be joined by three amazing women on this panel. But until Sandra comes, I'm going to hand over to Agne and Preeti to introduce themselves. Agne, would you like to introduce yourselves to the panel here?
Sure. Hi, my name is Agne, and I'm co-leading one of the largest fintech companies in Lithuania, called ConnectPay. We've been in operations for 4 years now. So I co-founded that with my partner, Marius, as well, and we are running the show and breaking through technologies of the fintech world today.
Exciting stuff. Thank you. Preeti, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Preethakrishnan. I work at DailyPay in New York City in the United States. We are a company that offers a huge selection of product solutions to employers to enable their employees to both be paid daily, but just optimize and change the way the world is paid and change the financial system. So I run strategy and operations at DailyPay. I started out as chief of staff to the CEO, and then I transitioned into this role about 2 years ago. I've been with the company for 4 years, and the company has existed for about 6 now. Things have grown super rapidly. It's very exciting to be a part of this change generally, but also to have experienced the changes in my career that I have at the company as well. So excited to discuss it.
Thank you. And Sanjay, you're back with us.
Yeah. Hey, everyone.
Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Apologies for the delay. I'm at another conference. It was not possible to find the room. So yeah, small technical problems, but very happy to be here. Are we introducing ourselves?
Yes. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great. So, hey, everyone. My name is Sanjay. I'm the CEO and co-founder at UTrust. UTrust is a Web3 payment technology platform, blockchain native. So we use the power of blockchain to facilitate crypto payments for anyone and to really offer the merchants the opportunity to accept cryptocurrency as a payment method. I'm actively invested in Web3 as mentor, advisor, investor in companies. My background is corporate, so prior to e-commerce and traditional payment world for a few years, and specifically prior to UTrust, I was leading the marketplace payments at PayPal. So that's how blockchain got my attention, because I wanted to innovate international payments. Long story short, it was too early at the time at PayPal, and I decided to do it on my own.
Wow, that's huge. Thank you. So I know when we've spoken previously that you, from the three of you, none of you started out in fintech. You found these opportunities, you dug them out, you jumped in. Can we talk a little bit more about the changes that have happened in fintech? I know women overall are still very underrepresented in the fintech space, and female executives are such a minority. How have you gone about finding these opportunities and really rising through to grab hold of them and run with them, essentially? Preeti, should we start with you?
Sure. I think this is a really good question, Neema, with respect to, how you kind of make the most of, your professional career and professional opportunity. It's interesting, I knew that when I was, kind of transitioning out of my old career, which was, so I'm a lawyer by trade. I was working at, a major international law firm. And when I transitioned out of that, I knew that I wanted to break into this space, but frankly, I knew no one in the space. I didn't know, kind of the ways in which to sort of get to the place that I wanted to with respect to the type of career I wanted to build. And so I did the most I could in every avenue. By that, I mean, I went to networking events like this one. I applied to all the jobs that I could find on LinkedIn. I met with CEOs and founders, female and male, to understand their experiences of how they kind of built their careers and made a similar transition. And I think, quite honestly, the thing that was most helpful for me is being open to the fact that even though you may face lots of roadblocks, an opportunity is there for you, and you can make the most of it once you find it. One of the great things about my career has been that since I've joined the company, I've been able to kind of create the niche and create the opportunities that I want to, based on the people that I work with, based on the role that I found. Having an operator's perspective on things really enables you to, I think, take control of and approach multiple different avenues of investment in an organization. And being open to the different directions that your career can take, I think, allows you and offers you the flexibility that you might sort of seek in creating the role and the career that you want in the future. So if I were to all of that, it is be open to lots of different avenues and explore lots of different avenues, because it's likely that you'll apply to 500 different jobs, but one of them will be the one that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Being open is a huge thing, I think, sometimes we're so tunnel visioned. Agne, has your experience been similar?
I think my journey was completely different. I was never it didn't take for me to network or to go to the events that much or apply for many positions as well. I came through architectural background, which is not less probably men dominated than the financial world it is now today as well. But I think what helped me along the way is to actually do everything 100%. So I was very into whatever I do it well, and very passionate and driven by what, and focused on doing what I want to do as well, not just doing for someone else, but really identifying what do I want from that, and what do I need to do. And by then you meet the people on the way who actually, one way or another, you make the connections, and you see the opportunities, and you go and talk with the people that you want to work with as well. So my approach has been always I focus on people who I want to spend time with, and who I want to relate to as well, and have the same values, and then I make a choice whether it's actually we are going towards that direction or not. Because the case for me to appear in fintech was I was on my maternity leave, and I was running. I lived in China at that time, and I ran the project, which is marketing and investment projects between Lithuania and US as well. And then apparently I got approached by someone saying, "Hey, we are starting this exciting fintech, and why don't you join?" And I said, "Well, I haven't done anything in financial world. I only know, well, I'm driven by technology. I know people. I'm driven by growth and change. And this is something that, this is the reasons why I was approached, because I worked with those people before." And then, someone said, "Look, you've got the bank account, right? So what is it that you don't know?" So I said, "Well, yeah, actually, let's try it." So I think it's more about finding the opportunity and trying to put the dots together and see, do you like that, the principles? Are you bound with the same values with the people as well? And do you see yourself in it? So that was the journey, and it still is, I think.
Still on the journey. Fantastic. And Sanjay, you're the CEO of your company. I mean, there's not many females in fintech that can say that. How has your journey?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk maybe about my journey to becoming an entrepreneur, because it wasn't linear at all, from the moment that I started my career to the moment that I decided to co-found the company. And I think in my case, I studied business administration, so my career was pretty linear at the beginning. So I knew exactly, what I was supposed to do with my studies. So I started in consulting, then I went into e-commerce. I never thought about becoming an entrepreneur, never thought about launching my own business, because no one in my network was an entrepreneur. I didn't have anyone in my family with their business, not even being a C-level thought. So I think, today is very different. Today you can have classes about entrepreneurship and even like very early stage, what does that mean, launching your business? At the time, that was not the case for me. So I really thought that my career was going to be very linear, and that time of my life was great. So I had a lot of fun. I worked at Vodafone, I worked at eBay, I worked at PayPal. So I would never change the journey, but I always felt, there's something more in there for me. Like, I feel I should do something more. I feel the urge to like do something myself. And I think, that really happened when I started working on my own self-development. So it was not really about one or two mentors. It was really about finding people that inspired me and learning their journey, like learning their mindset and what did they do to become who they are. And, one of my mentors at the time, he said, success leaves traces. So really, start watching, what those traces are for people. And then really, once I started my job at PayPal, I quickly became aware about all the problems in traditional payments. And I really saw, this is my opportunity to do it. Like, this is my opportunity to really do something else on my own. And by that time, because I was working already with a lot of coaches, with a lot of mentors, my mindset was in the right place. And I said, okay, it's now or never. So I'm going to jump and I'm going to do it. And, since then it's been quite of a journey, super fun. But yeah, I would say the most important thing you have is your mindset, and, your skills and how much you want to push for it. Because I think if you want to, anything is available to you.
Thank you. And it's interesting that you've said on your journey you had a lot of coaches and mentors and advisors, whereas, in your journeys, Agne and Preeti, it sounded as if, you kind of put goals in place and you plowed through. Can you talk a little bit more about if you don't have a mentor or you don't know people in that space, as you said, Preeti, where do you go for help? How do you find help? How do you find somebody to lean on?
So, I think this is a great question because I have often struggled with this too. Once I am in a certain space or situation, at DailyPay, I've benefited significantly from the mentorship that I've received. But until and I'll get to that in a moment, but looking for a mentor is often difficult because I think without understanding the baseline kind of connectivity that you might have with someone, it's difficult to say, hey, do you want to be my mentor, right? I think relationships that organically, develop into that mentor-mentee relationship often have a lot of value, or rather are easier to kind of move into. I think one thing that really benefited me, especially as I was looking to break into the industry, was just looking at, sort of those who had a similar path to me. So maybe it wasn't lawyers who wanted to transition into an operations role, but I specifically remember reaching out to someone who had started one of my favorite clothing brands, and she had left private equity to start this company. And it was a kind of similar path to what I was interested in doing. So I just reached out to her and I said, hey, can you meet with me and talk to me about your experience? And she, of course, but she was happy to. And I think taking in, feedback like that or giving myself the opportunity to just learn from people enabled me to kind of create the same effect that having a mentor at the time would have given me, to kind of bridge that gap. But I will also mention that after being at DailyPay, and I think I had, related this to this group earlier, I have benefited significantly from the mentor, that I have had here, who happens to be my boss, because, I think there are many different ways that a mentor relationship can kind of unfold. I have always, I think, benefited from indirect mentors or mentorship that is more feedback driven, or a little bit more, kind of organically oriented, instead of, hey, here are some things you need to work on. Let's talk about what that looks like in a couple of months. Because I found that mentorship through kind of osmosis enables you to kind of achieve and retain a lot of the behavioral, kind of mechanisms that maybe will enable you to get to the next level in a much more consistent way. And I've really, really appreciated that in my career. I think, everyone kind of tracks behind or gets the support of their chosen mentors or relationships in their careers. I have been lucky enough to be able to kind of work closely with and thus learn closely from people who've had very diverse and different experiences from what I have. And so the connection, I think, between me bringing my expertise and taking a different approach or perspective to that expertise has enabled me, I think, to do way more with or amplify the impact of things that I know I want to do. But having the, kind of difference in perspective that working with, mentors with diverse experiences, bring has afforded me a growth path that is much more rapid than I probably would have had otherwise.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Agne, are we back with audio? Still no audio. Okay. All right. I'm going to, I've sent a message to support, so hopefully they can fix it in the next 10 minutes, but I'm going to dive into the next questions, so to speak. Preeti, just kind of staying with you, and you've talked about coming into this career from a different career, from a legal background, and that's given you a whole diverse set of experiences. Can we touch on, I know you're a new mom. I hope you don't mind me sharing that on here. I know one of the things in fintech that's such a challenge, the gender disparity is one thing, but having environments that are set up for success for females to actually function in, and one of them is flexible working, flexible structure. How have you found that? And I use the word balance really lightly because I don't think it is a balance ever. It's always a juggle. What works at the time? How have you found that as a senior leader and motherhood, balancing that and working with that?
This is a great question. And I know this is something, Neema, as you mentioned, we had discussed. I think one thing, Neema, also, we're getting some feedback in the chat to if people can mute, because there's some feedback, I think, being heard. So I just wanted to, I don't know if you're looking at that, but hopefully this works. We'll see what happens. So I think I'm like echoing a lot and others aren't. So maybe it is something on my side. But Neema, the reason I say this is a great question is I didn't really fully appreciate this until I had a baby. Maybe that sounds like the most obvious statement in the world, but I think it will always be, as you said, a struggle. It is very difficult to balance a high-performing career with also wanting to devote time and energy, to a family. Again, might sound like the most obvious statement in the world, but I think, if anyone on this session is like me, you kind of always think you can manage it, even though maybe everyone else didn't, and you'll find some way to hack it. But I will say, it is certainly extremely challenging, but I would not have been able to even be in like close to a position as I am right now if I didn't have, I think, kind of the opportunities in the workplace that I do today. Meaning, I think I spent a lot of time cultivating the career that I did. And so it was very clear to those around me, and continues to be very clear, kind of what the impact of my work has on the organization. And probably because of that, but also, just a part of the workplace that I am lucky enough to work in, just the policies that we have enable me to create like a more flexible environment. For example, it's not flexible like I work from home half the time, but I come into the office very early and I leave earlier than I did before I had a baby, right? So I leave around 5 p.m. Eastern, whereas typically I would have spent until 6:37 in the office. Then I'll get back online at night, so that I have time to spend time with my baby and do bedtime and things like that. But I will say it continues to be a challenge because when I leave at 5 p.m., we're often in the middle of meetings, or I'm in the middle of a dialogue that I don't want to cut off at that time. And that's never something that goes away, right? Similarly, on kind of the family side, when I leave at 7:30 in the morning, my baby is, just waking up, and I'd love to have a couple more hours with him in the morning, right? So being able to kind of manage, I think, both of those sides is something that I think I will consistently struggle with throughout my career. But I think one of the things that I've benefited from a lot is having a work environment that I've sort of both established that the value that I am able to bring, but also that the organization requires, doesn't necessarily mean that I might have a traditional work schedule in the same way that I did before. But understanding what the needs of my team, what those needs are, what the needs of the organization are, and then making sure that I can marry those two in a way that continues to drive the effective value that I was driving before, and amplifying that value, while just, making a couple of changes sort of on the, again, technical aspects of how often am I not how often, but what are my in-office hours? What does that mean about how I need to be available afterwards? Are there creative solutions that we can come up with, especially in a post-COVID world where being virtual is, a little bit more accessible? How can we work with all of those tools to be able to, kind of create that same value? I think that's something that, again, I've, I won't say like demanded, because I think I am, as I said, lucky enough to work in an environment and at a workplace where it is clear that working moms, are going to continue wanting to drive their careers forward. But making sure that like you personally know what that's going to take from your end, and making sure that your organization then understands that, right? I think that's very, very important, both on the family side, but also just to make sure that it is that you're creating room for yourself to continue amplifying the value that you've made at the organization. I think I'm still learning. I've only been back in the office for about a month now, but I will say I've benefited greatly from just having a perspective on what I need and what I think the organization needs, to be able to keep doing the work that I was able to before.
I'm back.
It's like it's been a head month back. It seems to be working. And I managed to fix your audio.
Yes, I fixed it. So, so can I comment on the motherhood, if I may? I think one of the exciting things, well, for me, it was to learn that you can actually live on and do the work when the babies are born as well. I'm not the one who was like the career driven and would give up everything just to go with their work, but I love the work, and I think that helps me to combine the work with the babies as well. And it's always a struggle. For me, it's like if you go to work with having children, there's challenges along the way. And even if I stayed at home, there would still be challenges for me on the way as well. So it's always a constant fight with myself, am I a good mother? Am I good at work? Am I good at something? But just at some point, I just give up that voice, and I think like, oh, what the heck, you do what you would like to do, and you do it well. So, don't listen to that voice whatever it says somewhere. So I think it's more about dedication and being and willing to do what you want, because you always have a choice. And I think it's a bit related to the mentors as well, like on the people that we meet on the way. So I didn't have a chance to comment briefly as well. Like it's not only about the official mentors, and we all have the mentors one way or another, but it's a realization or identifying them as mentors on the way as well. So it could be a sister, a friend, a mother, or a colleague, or anything that inspires you on a daily basis, or like even if it's not here next to you, it's somewhere in the world as well. So perhaps seeing women who can combine their lives and when the family is there, it's still the show goes on. So it's more complicated sometimes, but it's still a show. So I think it's up to you how you want to run it, really.
I think it's really inspiring. So I'm not a mother yet, but that's in my very short, immediate plans, and it's very inspiring to hear other women like you ladies, and I think especially in a very male-dominated environment like ours, and I'm in crypto, so that's I think even more it's very important to educate people about, you know, what happens when a woman goes on maternity and the importance of supporting the woman when she returns. So I'm very fortunate as well, because in my company we are very diverse, so it's like almost a 50-50 sort of environment. And I was very much supported by my board of directors to take on the role of CEO. But I think it's very important to educate, you know, our male colleagues, our male counterparts on the importance of, you know, what happens to a woman when she has a baby, because it's a major time in her life and we want her to enjoy that moment. So we don't want her to feel guilty or, you know, resentful when she comes back. And I think related to the concept of a mentor, I think it's also about redefining, you know, who a mentor is, because for me, like, a mentor can be anyone, and it's about, you know, learning small pieces and bits from each person I meet along the way. But I think, you know, if you're looking, for example, to change your career or to change the industry you're working in, it's very important to identify people that are maybe, you know, 1, 2, 3 years ahead of you, and, you know, learn about what did they do in order to be where they are. So when I was changing my career from telco into e-commerce, I really wanted to go into e-commerce. So I literally spent hours per day, you know, searching people on LinkedIn, people that I really admire their career, and asking them to meet for a coffee. And you would really be surprised that, like, in 90% of the cases, people are super happy to have a virtual coffee or meeting with you. So I think, you know, it's about going forward on that resistance to write someone, because usually people will be super happy to help you. And, like, even myself, I always try to reply to all of the LinkedIn messages I receive, or like Twitter, because the best part of my job is if I can help someone else, if I can give an advice, I think that's very rewarding for anyone.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good point, because that there are a lot of people, not only female, but female perhaps, that I've met especially, that create the story that, you know, someone needs to come and help, and it's more like a victim pose, and not realizing actually you can go and talk with anyone you like, or you can approach anyone. Even if you will receive no, it's fine. Like, you still tried and you learned something out of it, and just go and try. So the learning I had, like on LinkedIn, I approach people on the street if I have some ideas and I want to share, and obviously they have the whole right to say no to me as well, and I'm fine and live on with that as well. So I think it's more of a courage to go and really don't pay attention too much if someone says no. Okay, I can start with a tip. So for anyone, and this is what I'm trying to say to my colleagues or anyone I meet on the way as well, that we shouldn't be taking ourselves too seriously, and stop victimizing ourselves as well. So we have the whole same features mentally that the men has, and it's not a fault of a man that something is not right or something is not going as we plan or as we want to, but it's more about our own resilience and keep up and do the things and step up and, you know, talk. And yeah, just when you don't take yourself too seriously in life, then I think the reactions to other people are not that serious. So it just gives you more freedom and liberty to do things.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah, I think I would echo that, and definitely add, like, let go of perfectionism. I think, you know, as women, we're always waiting to have the perfect pitch and, like, to have the perfect thing to say in a meeting, or like to have all the skills in order to apply for a job. And, you know, by doing that, we're not doing a favor to ourselves. We're just losing opportunities, because someone else will come, most likely a man, who will take the opportunity. You know, even if they don't have all the skills, they will go for it. So I think, you know, it's really about letting go of the fact that we need to be perfect, and embracing and being bold. And sometimes, as you said, Agne, maybe it's better to receive a no and just move forward. But yeah, being bolder and embracing everything that comes along the way, and not just staying in our corner because we're waiting for the perfect moment.
I think my tip is kind of a double whammy. So I would say, you know, don't be discouraged and always trust your judgment. So, you know, in don't be discouraged, what I mean by that is sort of similar to, you know, what Sanjay and Agne said here. I think a lot of times it can be very discouraging, both in the workplace, but also as you are trying to find a role, that people say no, or people may, you know, say something to you, but then someone else may say something very similar, and everyone will respond to that. That person happens to be a male. I think just not being discouraged by that and actually continuing to in some ways learn from the fact that the world is what the world is, right? And finding a way to operate in that world is something that has helped me a lot. Not, you know, I don't want to say I have a positive attitude. It's very difficult to not feel beat down sometimes when things happen over and over and over again. But just using what you know about the realities of the world in the workplace to be able to kind of carve out what you know your value can, like how you can amplify your value. And then also trust your judgment. You know, I think one thing that my boss and I often talk about, you know, he is male and I am female. We often bring very different perspectives to solving the same problem. And, you know, that is definitely because of the diversity of our professional backgrounds, but it also is because of, you know, kind of the differences with which we approach the world. And I think that women often have a very, very unique perspective to bring to things that men do not. It is often, you know, a much richer and more diverse perspective, not just in terms of like, I am a diverse person, but rather I have a different opinion or a different approach to how to solve this problem. And that's something that, you know, I think has given me significant opportunities to solve better and more important problems throughout my career, and that I enjoy, you know, being able to kind of work with people with diverse opinions or perspectives to be able to approach. And so I think those two things have really helped me in my career. And I think, you know, I have to constantly remind myself of them because, you know, suffice to say, regardless of how far you get in your career, where you are, things like that, these are things that I think all of us face on a regular basis. And being able to, you know, kind of come together and share in forums like this, being able to learn from, I think, other women who have perspectives that are different from mine, enable me to create a much richer mosaic and a much richer picture in terms of how, you know, I think I can approach my work and how hopefully, you know, others can kind of learn from that and how I can learn from them. So, you know, don't be discouraged and always trust your judgment is sort of what I live by, and hopefully something that can help, you know, other folks as well. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Everyone. Great to be here.
Bye.
Thank you, Neema.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.